Okay, welcome to another Orbiter 2010 video, and this video is going to be a continuation in my Earth to Mars video that I'm doing. And kind of the main reason I wanted to do this video was to try out some, the calculation aspect of it. I wanted to make sure that all of my calculations were correct, could be correct, that we could calculate everything, from the ground without ever having to, do any experimentation. And it seems as though all of our calculations are very good. In the last part of the video, we completed the TMI burn, the Trans-Mars injection burn, so we are now on our way to Mars. And you can see here, if you look down at the panel, let me switch camera views. You can see here, if you look down at the panel, that we only have 2.1% of the main fuel and 4.4% of RCS, giving us a grand total of just 87.81 meters per second of fuel remaining as we have completed the Trans-Mars injection burn. And we left ourselves 50 meters per second worth of mid-course corrections, although since we're using IMFD, I'm hopeful that we won't require anything even close to that. And we also left ourselves, I believe I left myself a 1% margin of error. Let me do a quick calculation on that. The total, the Trans-Mars injection burn was 3594. I remember it was just a couple meters per second less than that. So times 0.01, that's 1%. So 1% would be an additional 35 meters, about 36 meters per second. And that's what we see here. We got 50 meters per second for mid-course corrections that we calculated, plus 1%, which is a 35, about another 35 meters per second. So very tight budget here. And but I don't think we'll have any problems with it. Thanks to all the great training that I've got from Dimitri, I have a high degree of confidence that we can now make this trip from Earth to Mars with basically no delta V. We just need the TMI burn, and that's just about it. Okay, so let's get underway then. We got a bit of time warp here ahead of us, so let's go to 10x. Just to kind of get away from Earth a bit here. So we can get away from Earth at 100.
Translation.
And I'm going to bring up Orbit MFD over here. I'm going to reference the sun. Copy that information to the HUD, and I'm going to look for something like I see here, where the vessel's pointing to prograde or retrograde.
Translation, rotation.
And in this case, it's retrograde. And I'm just using control thrust to move to orient the vessel. Because we do not have the fuel to waste on needless rotation maneuvers. And now we're oriented basically perfectly to the retrograde. So we'll hit kill rotate, and now we'll warp time forward, and hopefully the vessel will stay more closely to that position. We're still close to the Earth though, so we'll have a bit of rotation. Well, quite a bit. All right, that's unfortunate. We'll try it again when we get over to prograde. Okay, we're pretty close to prograde, so let's orient the vessel. Okay, so they're at prograde. Now we will warp time forward again. So hopefully it'll hold better now that we're out away from the Earth. Yeah, that's much better. Now we can do 100,000 time warp without having the vessel spinning all over the place. And you can see our DV going up. Remember that we are going to gain about 27.5 meters per second just due to LOX consumption. So if everything's correct, by the time we arrive at Mars, we'll have about 115 meters per second of DV. Now that assumes that we don't have to do any mid-course corrections. If we have to do some kind of mid-course correction, then that 27 meter per second will be a little bit lower. It won't be significantly lower, but it will be a bit lower. And one of these days I'll have to update my spreadsheet to include so that the DV to LOX consumption also includes the cost of a mid-course correction. Dimitri showed me how to do that. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. And you can see our PEA at Mars. It was negative 2,000. Now it's positive 1,500. But I'm assuming it'll oscillate a little bit. Even IMFD isn't perfect when you're really far away. Let me actually zoom out. Let me switch to the other camera view. No, let's go ahead and leave this camera view up. Or this view of the cockpit, just because we can see the DV gain due to LOX consumption. It's kind of cool to watch that. But I'm going to switch pages and zoom out a little bit, and so we can see where we are. Let's actually center on us. And now the PEA is coming back down. Let me check one thing too. I don't remember the MJD that we're going to get there. 5.8, 504. So we still have 104 days to go. Go back to 100,000. And you can kind of watch your PEA as it kind of oscillates in and out to help you decide when the best time to do the mid-course correction is going to be, if you need to do one at all. Since it's currently trending downward, I don't want to stop and do a mid-course correction. And you really technically don't need to until you're within, you're close enough to Mars that you're, within that 0.01 SOI, the weak SOI. Now we're going out beyond the orbit of Mars. It looks like it'll probably go back into the negative and then go back out. So again, we won't worry about it too much unless it for some reason gets high, but it won't. It's IMFD. Okay, about 40 days to go.
Warning, oxygen low.
That always gives me a heart attack.
System reset.
We have enough oxygen. It's just when you get down below 10%, you get the warning. PEA, that's looking really nice there. It'll only take a touch of RCS to bring that up to the surface. Okay, we're 14 days out. Let's do this. Let's bring up, and by the way, since we didn't require any mid-course corrections, you can see that we've got a total now of 113,324. And if we look at our spreadsheet, we said that we would gain 27.50. So if we add these two together, then it's 115.31. And you can see we're really close to that point now, and we still got a few days to go. So again, it's beautiful to be able to do these calculations. What I was also going to do, though, is bring up orbit over here, orbit MFD rather, reference Mars, and we want to put that on the HUD. Now that we're close enough to Mars, we have that 0.1 gravitational influence. We can do just a touch of RCS to bring the PEA up a bit.
Translation.
And then that will be the only mid-course correction. Then it'll be less than a meter per second. Now, I like to actually face Mars when I do this.
Rotation.
But you probably are wasting a touch of fuel by doing it this way, because I'm rotating and I don't necessarily have to. But here again, I'm using control thrust, so it's a very small amount. And let's rotate over. but it's just nice to feel like I'm, you know, sitting upright in my chair. I just, it's probably just a human thing, you know, because when you're coming into a planet and you have the HUD upside down and backwards and sideways, it just doesn't feel quite right. But it really obviously doesn't make any difference in space. Okay, so there we are. We're at facing perfectly prograde.
Translation.
So I imagine, let's check our inclination. Let me see, what is it, mod? I'm trying to see what my inclination is going to be to Mars. Relative inclination, time to the periapsis, time to the node, relative inclination to something, I guess, relative to the node, I guess. But how do you see what your inclination is? Maybe it's the EQI. I think that's it. Let me check with yeah, orbit MFD. So okay, so we have a prograde orbit to Mars. That's good to know, because when you do your in-out translation, if you're retrograde, then you'll translate the other way versus if you're prograde. So PEA is negative 318, and we're prograde to Mars, so we need to translate out.
Rotation. Translation.
And I would say that's good. So let's take a look at things now. Let's bring back up burn time calculator. Put in our fuel mass, 33.2. So that was our mid-course correction, and it cost us about 2 meters a second. I think it was 113 before. So you can see that if I had included in this calculation the cost of the mid-course correction versus, you know, the DV gain due to LOX consumption with the mid-course correction included, it would be almost exactly the same. I mean, it would be like, instead of 27.50, it would be like 27.4 or something. It would be very minimal. But if you have a mission where you have mid-course corrections that are significant, like, you know, 50 to 100 meters a second, or if you have multiple mid-course corrections, you know, 2 or 3 mid-course corrections, and those add up to, say, 200 or 300 meters per second, then the difference, then your DV gain due to LOX consumption could be significantly lower, because you're spending a lot of that delta V on mid-course corrections. So that's just something to bear in mind. Okay, let's continue warping time forward, get over to Mars. And we're arriving at Mars, and our PEA is going to be 18.36, really close to what we set it to. We set it at 17 point something, and we're arriving basically going to be around the equator. Okay, we're getting pretty close, so let's bring up map MFD and see where we're going to end up, or where we are ending up here at Mars. Switch over to the orbit plane, and let's target Olympus runway. And I guess we're just not quite close enough yet to get the orbit lines. We definitely don't need IMFD anymore. I would think that we would be close enough now to see the orbit line, but I guess we're not. Okay, there we have it. So we're going to reach periapsis in 2,000 seconds. We'll probably be, I'm not sure how well lined up we'll be with Olympus at that time. We might have to go around. But we've still got time to do the capture, so let's go ahead and do that. So 245 days to get here, and we're basically here. We're only 2,000 seconds away. And we said it was going to be a 246-day flight. Let's see, 245 and 9 hours. So, yeah, really close. And I guess we can take one last look at burn time calculator. So we ended up at Mars with 112.411. And the calculation said that it would be 115. But again, we burned about a meter or two per second for that little mid-course correction. So, again, just almost perfect. Okay, warping time forward, and we'll get down to entry interface and then close the radiator. Okay, we're at entry interface. Let's start the APU. Close the radiator, put out the air brake. And let's transfer all the remaining main fuel over to RCS.
Crossfeed RCS. Warning, main system reset. Rotation.
Okay, switch over to surface HUD. Start rolling up right here to get rid of some of that vertical speed, then we'll roll back over. Don't have a whole lot of APU to go through, so we'll kind of use the RCS as much as we can for their various rotation maneuvers. Don't need burn time calculator anymore. Go ahead and turn the APU on. Go surface controls.
On. Off.
And just heads up long enough to eliminate the vertical speed. Reaching Mars with a periapsis, or a velocity of, I think it was really close to 6 kilometers per second. I have to look at the video playback to see exactly what it was before I started slowing down. Okay, roll over. At least roll sideways. You do not want to climb out to, greater than 40, about 42, 43 kilometers at the most. If you get up much higher than that, you lose control and you go back out into space. And I think it's going to be shorter to go around the planet to get to Olympus rather than, trying to do an about face and go back. We're going to try a runway landing though, so that means that we need to bend our orbital plane one way or the other, and I got to figure out which way that is.
Mach 26.
It's currently bending the wrong way, so let's go this way.
Information. APU fuel 90%.
bending the orbital plane, you can see the green line coming back up to
Mach
Olympus. That's what we
25.
need.
Mach 24.
And just trying to keep here around, this number is good, 27 kilometers, could be 30, could be 26. Okay, we're captured. Bring the air brake back in for now, so we can hold on to this velocity.
Mach 23.
And just bending the orbital plane a bit more. That's probably enough. We don't want it to get much higher than that. And now we just want to go forward in, across the planet until we get closer to the base and start working on our alignment with the runway, which is always challenging. Let's bring up surface on this side. We need to get to 12 point, I think it's 745, I'll have to look it up exactly. North. We're currently heading north at this rate. Pull back in toward the planet a little bit so our vertical speed doesn't get too high. And we can probably put the radiator back out. Yeah, this part of the vessel is only at 30 degrees, so we can extend the radiator. Just have to watch it though if we get back down, in the 25 kilometer, 20 kilometer range. Okay, we are 1 degree north. You can see that here. And again, we got to get all the way to 12.745. But as we approach that particular latitude, we want to make sure that we start bringing our rate down before we get to that point, because otherwise we'll go way past 12.745. Then we'll have to come back in. But we're still 8,000 kilometers from Olympus runway, so we don't want to bring our velocity down too fast.
Information. APU fuel 80%.
And hopefully we've got enough APU to get through this. I guess what I should probably do is go ahead and turn off
APU offline.
the APU and just use
Rotation.
a bit of rotation as needed, because we've got quite a bit of glide time ahead of us. Okay, we're at 3 degrees north.
Mach 22.
I'm gonna have to start the APU and change the trim a little bit.
On.
A little bit more. Just trying to find that point where the vertical speed is basically holding it just a really small number. That way I can control the vertical speed just with rotation. Probably here.
APU
Turn the
offline.
APU back off to save some fuel. And we're now at 4.3 degrees north. And this is our rate. We're going toward the north at 0.024. I'm going to go ahead and let the vessel settle a little farther down into the atmosphere because we've got a lot of velocity still, and I'd like to slow things down a little bit more. We're still 7,400 kilometers out from the base, but it has a tendency to sneak up on you. 5 degrees north latitude. Going to watch that vertical speed though. I don't want to get down to 20 kilometers and have a vertical speed that's negative 200 either. Can use just a little bit of up rotation to keep that vertical speed under control. Turn the APU back on and do a trim adjustment.
On.
And what could also be interesting maybe would be to see load MFD on Mars. So let's load that. Let's put the display up on the screen. Then I'll move the cam down so you can see it. Let's bring up base sync. Not base sync, aero brake. Target Olympus runway. And we are at 7 degrees
21.
north. Put the air brake out.
APU
Turn the APU back off for now. Eight degrees north. So maybe when we get to 10 degrees north, I'll start inputting some bank to take out the rate. Let me actually start doing that maybe a little bit now so I can figure out which way I need to bank.
Mach 20.
I think I need to bank the other way. I can't really tell. You can see our equatorial position. We're at 9, almost 10 degrees north, and we have a rate that's 0.0178, and this needs to basically be 0 by the time we get to 12.745, or else we will overshoot. But we are at 30 minutes at this point of the video, so let me go ahead and pause here, and I will pick it up in the next part. If you like this part of the video, please do hit the like button down below. If you didn't like it, hit the don't like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Links are in the description down below, and I will see you in the next video.